Hi, I'm Lisa Crispin. I'll be joined today by Areti Panou, and together we're going to talk about how you and your teams can succeed with testing and continuous delivery by involving your whole delivery team. I've been a hands-on tester on Agile teams for the past 20 years, and also for about that amount of time, I've been partnering with Janet Gregory to write books about testing in Agile, and we've also created a video course and a live training course, Agile Testing for the Whole Team, which you can learn about on agiletestingfellow.com. And I'm currently working at OutSystems as a quality consultant tester on our monitoring and observability team, helping to build an observability practice. And continuous delivery has been a big interest of mine for the past couple of years, because I really see that being able to deliver small valuable changes to customers frequently at a sustainable pace is so valuable, and we have to figure out how testing fits into that. Areti will introduce herself when she starts her portion of this talk, and but I could just tell you she's awesome, and I've learned a lot from her, and she'll be sharing her experiences with you. So some of you, I understand, will be physically co-located in a room in Lisbon, you lucky people, and some of you will be online. But wherever you are, I encourage you to make sure you have something to drink. I got my seltzer water here. Have something to take notes with or draw with, just to keep yourself occupied. Get up and move if you need to. And because learning is your job, we're gonna try to facilitate a learning experience for you, but we learn better when we're hydrated, when we move around some, when we use our hands. So take responsibility for your learning, and we're going to have a Q&A, live Q&A at the end of our recorded session. So please take your notes, and we welcome all your questions. So here's what we hope to go through today. Getting your team engaged for frequent deployments, feeling confident about that because you feel like you've handled enough testing and you've built quality in. We're going to help you be able to talk with your team about continuous delivery and DevOps. And we're going to, most importantly, give you exercises to help your team understand your deployment pipeline, ways to shorten your feedback loops, ways to see whether certain stages of your pipeline, such as automated tests, are giving you the value that you need. And we're maybe most importantly, talking about how to build a quality culture. We hear that a lot in DevOps. A DevOps culture or quality culture is really important and really requires the whole team to be involved. So we're going to talk, we're going to demonstrate, but the live Q&A will be the best part. And this was designed to be a hands-on live workshop originally, and then the pandemic hit. So we can't do that for infrastructure reasons, but again, we're going to share information and exercises for you to do with your team, and we'll provide those materials to you so you can do those later with your team. So again, keep track of your questions. Let's first talk about building quality in. This is we can't test quality into a product. We have to build quality into it. So software development, it's not a linear thing. We hear a lot about shift left, shift right, but it's not start here and finish here. It's that continuous DevOps loop, and we're testing around both sides of that loop continuously. Dan Ashby has a great visual showing this continuous testing idea, and Janet has adapted it. This is our adaptation to it. Adaptation of it. It's more colorful, but we credit Dan with that idea. And so we test all around the loop, and testers add value on both sides of this loop. So not only as we're coming up with new ideas for our product, building those things, making sure we all understand what we're building, getting those delivered, making sure the quality is there, but also getting them into production and taking care of them in production and learning from production. So we're not going to get all into every step of this today, but being able to do this continuous build and learn loop takes a commitment from the whole team to make that successful. So to have whole team ownership of quality, we have to first think, we have to get together and really talk about, the whole team needs to talk about what kind of quality do we want, what level of quality do we want, and make a real commitment to it, because we know we're going to run into obstacles. It's going to be hard. So we have to be prepared to be creative and overcome the obstacles that come our way. We also need to build relationships, not only within our team, but with other teams and other parts of the company. It's really important. Of course, Agile development is all about continuous learning and improvement, but having a cross-functional team with people with different specialties, different experience, different backgrounds, that means we've got a lot of perspectives we can take advantage of, hopefully overcome our cognitive biases, because maybe we all have different biases, and do that continuous holistic testing together, not as a phase at the end. It's an integral part of software development, and just like coding. So to continually improve, we want to do the smallest thing possible that helps achieve the value we're trying to provide for the customer with a new change to our product. We want to get it in front of some customers and get feedback, and then should we keep working on this new change, this new feature? Should we pivot? Should we just drop it? We learned something, it's not lost time. We learn quickly and we can move on. So this iterative improvement over time is what we're looking for, building towards our end goals and that level of quality that we all committed to already. The smaller successes give you positive reinforcement. We should celebrate them, and enables you to change direction as soon as you need to. So as we understand the work we need to do, we need to prioritize. And this is where teams do things like groom or align their backlog, or brainstorm about their new feature and decide what's our first thin slice, maybe using a technique like story mapping or event storming to help us do that. And our product owner and business stakeholders help us balance the needs of the business, the needs of the customers, the cost or difficulty of implementing a new change. We have to take those all into consideration as we prioritize. Now, there's a lot that goes into this, and we put some links in our resources slide to kind of address this area of keeping things like making stories small and testable, and understanding the value to customers. But this takes time. So let's look at some of the tools and techniques and frameworks that can help us with continuous improvement with respect to continuous delivery. Oh, a lot of times when we hear continuous delivery or continuous deployment, we think about the CI/CD pipeline, we think about containers, we think about the cloud, and all these different tools that are available to us to keep our complex distributed systems running. And it's certainly part of it. It's not everything, though. So the term DevOps was coined back in 2009 by Patrick Dubois, and you know, it has the word development, which includes testers, and operations, which in my experience, I was always involved with operations and taking care of the production side myself. So this is the idea, we bring everybody together. So Agile development should really have been about this. It was about a whole team approach, but what happened in a lot of companies, even after they adopted Agile, it was just the people involved with building the software product, and then they were throwing it over the wall to the operations team or the site reliability engineers, platform engineers, you know, the people deploying to production and monitoring production and taking care of customer problems. So The problem with that, if you separate the development team off too much, they're not feeling the pain of the customers directly. They don't have a really good handle on what customers need. So this is about removing those extra silos and boundaries, and it's the you build it, you own it mentality. So if you're the one that's going to get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning because of a production problem, you might take more care at making your code testable and operable so that you can easily take care of it in production. So all these concepts go into DevOps and continuous delivery. Let's talk about some terminology. If you're new to these ideas of continuous delivery and DevOps, you may not know the language. So we need to talk to everybody on our team, people outside our team. Let's just understand some terms. So I want to start with metrics. I'm always being asked, oh, what are some good metrics to measure our quality? And I think I look to the metrics the State of DevOps survey has come up with to measure the performance level of teams. Because in my experience, these metrics are really meaningful and they mean something. You may also want to set extra metrics based on your goals. So whatever your team's goals are, you want to have some way to measure your progress towards those goals. But I think that these State of DevOps metrics are also really helpful, and you can go to their site and download the results for I think the latest results are out there for 2019. Also, the book Accelerate explains these in great details, and it's an awesome book. It also helps you with the culture side of things, which we're going to talk about more later. Continuous integration. I first learned about this when I joined my first extreme programming team back in 2000. And I'm going to quote from the ThoughtWorks site because they were one of the pioneers of continuous integration and building tools around that. They call it a development practice that requires developers to integrate code into a shared repository several times a day. Each check-in is then verified by an automated build, allowing teams to detect problems early. So production deployments are frequent, but not every change results in an automated production deployment. So that's getting more into continuous delivery. People can be really dogmatic about continuous integration, and whether we're doing trunk or master-based development where all changes get merged right back into master or trunk, or whether we're doing feature branches or story branches, there are a lot of different approaches. Like do a branch and then merge back in later. I think there's a trunk-based development.com or .org site that goes into all the aspects of this, and I encourage you to learn more about that. So continuous integration, it's about the merging. So we have multiple people working on this code base at one time, and we need to make sure those changes don't conflict with each other. So we have to merge them and make sure all those changes are aligned. It is the start of the deployment pipeline, and it's often coupled with unit testing. It's what kicks off that pipeline. The deployment pipeline is kind of the backbone of continuous delivery. It's the infrastructure that gets your changes from committing to the code base to getting a change to production. It's a mechanism. It's the steps or stages your changes need to go through before they can be deployed to production. And there are still plenty of teams out there who don't have anything automated yet. You've still got a deployment pipeline, even if each stage is manual. It's still a pipeline. And so over time, you hope to automate the ones that you can automate. It's different for every company. It's different for every team. So generally, as you go from left to right, looking at this pipeline, the earlier steps are fast, like unit tests, compiling. Those things go fast. As we move to the right, the steps take longer because we're going through more layers of the application, and we're doing more types of tests. But they give us more confidence about deploying, making sure we're not going to break anything when we put this in production. But we still want to try to keep these feedback loops as short as we can. So definitely we're going to talk a lot about that. Again, stay hydrated. Continuous delivery. So again, just some terminology here. Continuous delivery is about deploying small, valuable changes to production frequently, but without stress. So we're going to deploy once a week, twice a week, every day, multiple times a day. Or we may not deploy to production that often, but we have a build that is deployable to production every day. Because some domains, some industries, you wouldn't necessarily be changing production every day. But the fact that you could deploy anytime you want, that's continuous delivery. It's a business decision whether to actually deploy the thing, but it is ready to deploy. And so here in this example, I've got some automated steps in blue, some manual steps in yellow. And this is just, sometimes we can do things in parallel. We can fan out and fan back in. There can be gates to say, don't proceed. If this one fails, don't go on. Lots and lots of things with that pipeline. I'm not going to go into all those details, but something that you would like to, that you should learn about. And then continuous deployment, it's the difference is that every commit, if it gets through the pipeline and everything passes, it's going to go right to production. It's going to be deployed to production. It's not going to necessarily be released to production, because we can use things like release feature toggles to hide changes from users, or expose them only to a subset of users or only to ourselves until we're confident to open them up for everybody. So we can do canary launches where only a few users see it, dark launches where nobody sees it, progressive rollouts where as we feel more confident about it, we expose to more people. It's a lot of different ways to do that. And with these release feature toggles or feature flags, if we do turn something on and something bad happens, we can turn them back off. So that's a important part of the infrastructure that you really need to master. And there are tools to help you do that. But it's a really key part of being successful at continuous delivery or continuous deployment is using these types of release feature toggles and techniques with your deployments. So let's just sum up that deployment pipeline again. So continuous integration, we're just committing, merging changes. Continuous delivery, we're running some automated tests, we're maybe doing some other activities. It's not necessarily even all automated. And getting to a place where someone can decide, some human can decide, yes, let's release to production, or deploy to production, I'm sorry. And then continuous deployment, unfortunately, they use the same acronym, CD. We're going to automatically deploy every change to production if all the tests pass and everything succeeds in our deployment pipeline. So if this was a hands-on workshop, we would have you now visualize your pipeline. So what we want to do is to teach you how to walk your own team through an exercise like this. And we're just going to use Google Drive for this. You can use Miro or Mural or whatever that you have. And if you're lucky enough to be physically co-located again, you can do this. We'll have a printable card deck that you can download and use for in-person visualizing, or you can just write stages on sticky notes or draw on a whiteboard. It's however it works for you. The important thing is to get the team together and talk about it and understand what is in your pipeline. So I'm going to switch to being able to demo this. Let's see if I do this right. Okay. I'm going to be looking away from the camera to be able to do this. Sorry about that. So this was just an example. I took these cards and my imaginary team, I represented what happens in our pipeline. So it starts with a commit. We merge the code, merge the trunk. And hey, well, let's do some static code analysis because that's really quick and it'll quickly tell us if perhaps we violated any of our accessibility standards or our coding standards. And if that's okay, we'll move on to our unit level testing. Again, these are the fast early stages that give us the really fast feedback. And if that's going well, let's deploy to a test environment. And maybe our next step is the API level testing. So we're moving up that test automation pyramid, doing the tests that are a little harder to write and maintain, but still give us fairly fast feedback. And if those pass, let's start fanning out, and we'll do some things in parallel. We're going to deploy to 2 different test environments here and do some testing in parallel. We're going to do some manual security testing. Of course, that could be automated as well, and some automated tests through the UI. So now we're going through all those layers of the application. These tests are going to take longer to run, but they're going to make us feel more confident about deploying. And if those succeed, well, now we're going to do a couple of different manual testing activities, exploratory testing and accessibility testing. And when we're happy with that, we're going to deploy to staging. We happen to have a requirement to do user acceptance testing, and then when that's good, we're going to deploy to production. And again, these things could be moved asynchronously off the pipeline if we use release feature toggles, for example, to keep those changes turned off in production after we deploy. And then when we finish our manual activities like exploratory testing and accessibility testing, then we flip the feature flag and release those changes in production. And so, yeah, this is just about getting everybody on here, moving the cards around, and I might say, hey, well, you know what, we really need to do performance testing. So let's stick a step in here for performance testing, deploy, and let's copy one of these arrows and move that down here. And then we're going to do our performance testing. And then we're going to deploy to production. So this is just an example of, or we can decide, hey, you know what, we're gonna automate, we're gonna make this, we've actually been able to automate our security testing. We found a tool that does a pretty good job for us, so we're gonna make that blue now. That's the wrong color blue, but anyway, you get the idea. Now, it's easy for me to say, get your whole team together and do this. I have not succeeded in getting my team together to do this on a couple different teams. If I just do this myself, or maybe with another tester, we still get a much better understanding of what our pipeline looks like. And we can go, it'll probably generate questions that we can go ask our other team members of, can you explain more about the deployment pipeline? Can you explain why this stage is happening here? Why can't we make these parallel? Is this stage really necessary? So it's just a way to think through your pipeline. And Areti's going to show you an exercise to really dig into each stage and understand the value of it and what's going on there and what you're gaining from it, how you can improve it. Okay, so let me flip back to my slides. Okay, hopefully that worked. So again, try this later with your team. We have all the resources available to you. And again, if it's virtual, do a video meeting to do this. And if you are lucky to be in person, you can do it with physical cards or sticky notes or whatever. Again, we put examples of step cards out there or stage cards. You can make your own. You may not use all those. You may have different ones. The important thing is to talk about it. Have those conversations. Think about how you can improve, but just improving one little baby step at a time. Don't try to boil the ocean and do it all at once. It's really, it's the conversations that really matter, and the planning and thinking about your ultimate goal, but let's set a next small goal. It's like, well, we've looked at our pipeline. It's really too long of a feedback loop for us. Where could we speed it up? Well, we're not doing static code analysis now. Maybe we should add that. Maybe we should find a tool and start doing that. Or our security testing is taking too long. Maybe we can automate some of that. Or we're still doing a lot of manual regression checking. Maybe we can automate more of those tests. So there are just a lot of ways that you can talk with your team about your deployment pipeline and how you can fit all the testing activities into that pipeline. Maybe look into using release feature toggles if you're not already. And so you could maybe identify a tool to help you with that, or code it yourself. It's always, I used to think it was better for teams to build their own, whatever it was, test automation frameworks or deployment tools. But we have such great tools available today that to reduce your team's cognitive load, I highly encourage you to, if there's some other company that makes that tool that can do what you want, buy it, let them maintain it. You can focus your time on your own product. So again, these are conversations. Don't try to fix everything at once. This will help you identify what's our biggest problem, what's our biggest obstacle, what experiment can we try to work around that obstacle, make it smaller, and then move on, shorten our feedback loops, have better metrics, thinking about those state of DevOps metrics of we can recover from production failures faster because our pipeline runs faster. That's always been a problem for my teams, having that pipeline short enough. So far, we've talked about the whole team approach to testing and continuous delivery, getting everybody on the team involved in identifying the testing activities that need to be done, seeing where they fit in the pipeline, and approaching that as a whole team. Don't just throw it off to the testers and say, we're doing continuous delivery now, you should test faster. It has to be something the whole team thinks about, and it's also about making your code more testable and easier to automate tests for, easier to explore, and more operable, easier to instrument the code to do the monitoring and observability that you need to maintain that and keep things going well in production. We talked about some terminology so you can start talking to other people about this, visualizing your pipelines, starting those conversations, and Areti's going to go into some more techniques to get those great conversations going. So we'll turn it over to Areti now.
Hello, everyone. I would like to tell you a couple of things about myself and how I changed my perspective over the years to think that quality really needs to be something that the team needs to look into rather than be a one-person task. I started in software development around 2010, and I was lucky enough to be working with a development team that they really took quality and agile to heart. So most of the developers, if not all of the developers, thought that quality is really their responsibility. So they let me as a tester really also grow into my role to do proper testing and have the time to do the things to help the team. But I was never really the sole responsible for taking care of quality. Even after some years when my role evolved from tester to quality responsible, we always saw that testing and quality in general was the whole team's responsibility, even if I was the one organizing some activities around quality. Then after 5 years with that team, I moved into a central team as a quality coach. And my role there was to help people in a quality role bring this kind of whole team to quality and testing mentality to their teams. And when I started there, I thought that this should be easy because my entire experience with that was, sure, the whole team takes care of quality. But with working with other colleagues and other teams, I realized that this was not the default. Our case was rather than an exception than the rule. And so my perspective changed a bit, and I started looking into ways how to really bring the mentality that my team and what I found when I started, how to bring this to other teams. And now I moved back into a into a development team, but now as a product owner. So my perspective of quality in the whole team is changing again, because now as a product owner, I'm not as much part of the development team, but I still see the need for the whole team to be responsible for quality, and the whole need of not one person being the bottleneck or the safety net when it comes to quality, but when I receive software that is supposed to be working, I need to have that from the entire team and not rather from from a single person. So this is my experience, and this is how it transformed over the years. So how can we look into our pipelines and the process of releasing software? How can we make this better as a team? In the exercise that you did with Lisa, you started looking into your deployment pipeline. And each of these pipelines, it might be something fully automated, doesn't need to be a fancy CI server deployment pipeline, but it also can include meetings. It can include, let's say, manual steps, such as getting information from somebody, writing some documentation. And the idea of doing the LISA's exercise was to find out what are these steps that are in your pipeline. Can be builds, can be static code checks, could be code reviews, could be anything. And now the second step is looking into each of these steps independently. So who are they important to? Who knows about them? Who doesn't know about them? Are they easy to understand? Does everyone know what the steps are doing? And we're going to look into that in the form of some questions. So the first one is, what is the step there for? What is its purpose? The second one is it important? Do we need to have it? If we would remove it, who would be the one really affected by the loss? If it's an automated step, is it something that we can trust its results? Or is it something that is breaking without us knowing why? How long does it take to execute that step? If it's an automated thing, is it something that lasts a couple of minutes, or is it something longer? If it's, let's say, organizing a meeting, how long does this meeting last? Another question we can ask is how easy it is to maintain that step. For example, if you do a change in your code and then a step is to fix the tests, is it easy to fix those tests? Or is it something that takes way longer than the original change? How often do we have that step in our pipeline? Is it something that we need to do with every change, or is it something that we need just before releasing the software to our customers? How easy is it to expand the step? For example, if the step is some sort of automated test, how easy it is for everyone to write a new one? What are the external dependencies in the step? If it's something automated, what are the libraries that we're using? Are they always available? If it's organizing some meeting, what is this possibility of the people that are invited to the meeting? Can we always get them on a short call, or do we need to set things up rather soon? Is it an automated step? Is it not an automated step? Does it make sense that it is? Does it make sense that it isn't? And finally, if the step is failing, what can we do to make it work again? And how long does it take? Who gets the alert to fix the step? Who is responsible for fixing it? Is it the team? Is it the specific person? Such kinds of questions we can always ask. And as a team, you can always ask these questions also within your context. There are questions that are relevant for you, and you can come up with them to check the quality of the steps of your pipeline. So for the next exercise, we'll try to look into one of such steps. And for an example, I chose performance tests. These are tests, for example, checking the load that your system can take. And sometimes they're specialized knowledge. It's not something that everyone knows. And for the roles, I've chosen the developer and tester and the product owner. And just for argument's sake and to make the example a bit more tangible, they're all a bit on the extreme side of things. So let's see how this exercise would work. I will share another window now. Okay. So we have again these questions here, and let's try to see how the developer, the tester, and the PO would start answering them for the question purpose. Why is the step here? Why do we have this performance test? And it might be that the impression of the developer is we need the steps because we have this performance requirement and we need to fulfill it. On the other hand, the tester might say, no, this is not only why we need this test, we also need them to see if the system can take the load. Moving on to the next question. What if we remove it? Who will miss it? So the developer, again, a bit provocative here. The example says only management will miss those things. The PO says, oh no, but if we don't have them, we won't be able to know if we can scale our product. Are these tests trustworthy? I mean, are they giving us results that are stable and we can relate to? And then we see that everyone here is agreeing, yes, there seems to be a bit of an agreement here. So these tests seem to be giving us consistent results. Now we'll switch to the ready one so that you don't need to see all the moving around. The duration, how long does it take for these tests to finish? 10 minutes, which is okay for a performance test. And the developer says, oh, no, they take forever. They take forever. These are too long. How easy it is to correct it? Developer says hard. The tester seems to agree there, not easy. The PO also has this impression that they are quite complicated. How often do we execute it? Daily, but maybe it's enough to run only before deployments. That could also be a case. How easy it is to add to this step? And then the tester says, oh, only a single person can add something to it. And the developer seems to agree. So the knowledge to improve this step, only one person knows how to do it, how to add an additional test. What are our dependencies? X, Y, Z, X, Y, and Z, but Z sometimes fails. Is the step automated? Yes, they all agree, and they all agree that it makes sense that it is automated. And what happens if the step fails? So the tester is under the impression that whoever broke the test should be responsible in fixing it. The developer says, no, only Jamie can do these things. That's the only person who knows how to fix them. The goal of the exercise is to identify the spots that something can be improved. So everybody seems to agree that these are things that are stable and they give back meaningful results. On the other hand, from the answers, we see that they're not so easy to maintain. Also, there seems to be some kind of a bottleneck. Only one person can add or fix them. It makes sense that this is an automated step. And there are also some questions about the value. Who do we need this from? Do we really need them? By doing this exercise for more steps in your pipeline, you can identify the spots that need to be discussed. And even more importantly, look at any possible solutions, any actions that need to be taken for the steps to be improved. Because it doesn't really matter to have a fancy pipeline in place if the steps that are in it, they don't bring fast feedback. Switching back to the original window. Nope. Oh, this happens now in recordings and shared content. But we'll be back to the presentation. Hopefully where we left off. Gonna skip a couple of slides. This is what Lisa has showed you. Going forward. This can happen in a recording. This happens also. This could happen also in a live presentation. Hopefully this is the last time. So more or less. So if you would like to try it later with your team, choose a pipeline step you want to discuss about, write down, each team member writes down the answers to the questions, bring them all together and discuss the results of each dimension. And then you get this overview of the value of the step and what could be the further actions to improve it. So what have we done so far? With Lisa's exercise, you have seen how to visualize the steps of your pipeline. With the exercise I've just showed you is look into ways to discuss these steps and try to improve or optimize them. And one of the last things, or let's say something to really polish these results, would be to share ownership of pipeline steps. Think about pipeline steps that are tests, that are test suites. If only the tester in your team is responsible for that, that creates a bottleneck. The knowledge that that person has is only in their head. By having at least two owners for each step, first you can have discussions about the step itself, how it can be improved, what things can be different. And also if two people see that there is an issue to it, they can bring it forward to the entire team and start discussing of better ways to improve it. Having a single ownership is also an issue because the knowledge is not shared within the team. And some people would like to have that knowledge. Imagine, for example, a step that is connecting requirements to automated tests. The product owner and the tester might be interested in improving it and finding ways to make it better. Performance tests like before, maybe operations people would be interested to see how the system is behaving, and maybe they want to be owners of such steps. Having more than one person removes the bottleneck effect and gives faster feedback from the entire team. But now that you have identified, discussed, share ownership of steps, this needs to be repeated again and again and again, because let's think about it. People change in projects themselves change, technology changes. So it would be a bit weird to say, this is our pipeline and this is how we keep on doing things. Things change, and this change should also be considered in your cycles. Whenever somebody sees that a step has the possibility to be improved, or a step is time now to be removed, it is a good idea to bring such kind of issues to either to organized scheduled retrospectives or even to daily stand-ups, to bring the team's attention that this is something that we need to look into now. So this circle keeps on continuing, and it's not a one-time thing and it's not a one-time exercise, but it needs to be repeated, not weekly, but it's something to keep an eye on so that it doesn't stale. And the whole idea of continuous delivery and later DevOps was to make deployments to production boring tasks. And the way to do that was to automate the things that were being repeated and they didn't need any human interaction to make a mistake. So having this deployment pipeline, ideally as much automated as possible, removes the human error factor. But once you have done that, once you have automated or semi-automated your deployment pipeline, have a consistent flow of changes to production, then the next step, the next natural step is to look into your productive environments, either with monitoring, observing how the system behaves, or doing some testing in production. So taking care of the deployment pipeline is one thing. Moving forward into testing and production, how the system now behaves with this frequent changes is the next natural thing. But the DevOps in general brought operations and systems in production and development closer together. And the whole idea was that the knowledge of both disciplines, development and operations, needed to come together to build a better product. So they wanted to bridge the silos between these two disciplines. On the other hand, there are always discussions whether security belongs in there, so DevSecOps, DevTestOps, DevUXOps. And as the DevOps movement matured and so on, it really showed that it was about engaging all disciplines, not only development and operations, to come together and exchange their knowledge. And what they wanted to do in principle was to share a quality culture, to bring people together and say, we want to build a good product. So we need the knowledge of everyone and exchange information between us to build a good product. And the outcome of this, that's why culture is fundamental for having a DevOps team. So to build these relationships, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not so easy. If the teams are open for interaction, then they can start discussing in a more structured way what they need from one another. But sometimes to make the first steps, maybe engage the team by treating them with something nice like food. Of course, nowadays we're mostly in our different environments, so doing food is not so easy. But start looking into ways how you could attract people from other disciplines to start talking to you, how you can see what they need to know from you and start exchanging information. The idea is to start building relationships with the other teams, so you get the information they give you and you give back information that they might not know. Katrina Clocke, in her book Testing in DevOps, describes how to create pathways from one team to the other and then have the whole organization start exchanging information. We want everyone, it probably doesn't work for everyone to know everything, but the more you know about other disciplines, the easier it is to start thinking of how to resolve the problems that they have and eventually expand into product problems. An example of that could be if a program lead says, no, we cannot use certain open source components because they have certain licenses that can be risky for us, but the development team doesn't understand what the risk is, that your commercial product will be free for everyone. If there's not good exchange of information between the two teams, then it's hard to find solutions for the problem, but I want to use this library. What can I do? Why shouldn't I? So building relationships is essential for building a good foundation for DevOps. On the other hand, it might not be so easy to convince people to get engaged into quality. There are some people that might find, no, taking care of quality is not in my job description. We have people that have the quality role to take care of quality. And not everyone might jump to the opportunity to come to the meetings, to visualize the pipeline, to improve the pipeline steps. These might be exercises that don't appeal to everyone. And it is hard and it takes effort to convince them that taking care of quality in the end actually improves their day-to-day work. Having their changes to production fast improves their day-to-day work. They don't need to work on something that they worked on 2 weeks ago. Not having major bugs to fix, coming back and forth between testing and development, this improves their workday when it comes to developers. The idea is from everyone who's trying to engage people, to bring them to take care of quality tasks, is also to show a bit of empathy and a bit of understanding that people might not find it natural to get involved in it. It is extra work that needs to be done. So slowly and by showing what the benefits for those people work is by engaging in quality, is much better than just obliging them to say, now you're going to do quality tasks or you're going to write this and that test. It's better to engage them and slowly show them the benefits, at least to my experience. But nothing would work without the management support. I mean, even if the team gets there and says, okay, we want to really engage in quality work. If management says, oh, no, but we cannot allocate any time for you to do these exercises to improve things, then all the efforts fall to a void. On the other hand, there is no manager that at least I've met that said, oh, no, we don't want to invest into quality. But they would need some kind of translation what investment in quality is to their bottom line, to the business. So it's different to say we will do exercises to improve our pipeline And it's different to say, we want to improve the pipelines so that changes end up to production with less risk. So anything that we release to our customers has less risk. This is something that management understands a bit better. It's different to say, we are looking into solutions to optimize our steps, and it's different to say, we can't release the software because we don't know if what is failing is actually a mistake or it is not. It needs to be some kind of translation from development language into management language to understand why it's that, what's the benefit for the business if quality exercises and quality actions are done. And this is also not easy, and it also takes patience, but it's good to show the value that a quality culture actually brings to the product, and not only to the well-being of the development team, but if they see the benefit of it to the product, how changes get faster, how if you have more time to think about features and discuss about them, how they will be implemented, how they will be tested, that they end up in better quality and thus more value to the customers. All in all, changing quality culture is hard, and it's not something to be taken lightly. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes determination from everyone involved in it. And it's not about releasing changes fast. It's releasing changes in a sustainable way, sharing the ownership so that there is not a single bottleneck. And notice that so far we are not talking about testers. Neither Lisa or I, we're never talking about testers taking care of quality, but really bringing it to the team level. Because as things change so fast right now, it is really unsustainable for a single person to be responsible for the quality of something so complex. Systems are complex, and to have a single person who has the sole responsibility of taking care of it is really not something that it will last in the long run. People leave, they take the knowledge with them, people go on holidays, and products cannot wait for a single person to come back when they do deployments daily or multiple times per day. That's why the whole team needs to be engaged in quality, and needs to be some kind of transformative period that might be pumpy, because to also shift the focus from the tester being responsible for quality and the whole team engaging in quality, that might also come with some delays, because shifting this mentality and saying we're all in it and I cannot wait for somebody's feedback to release, but our system needs to be the feedback so that we can make a release. It's also something that takes time, and it might be bumpy in the beginning. So far, my experience has been positive. It might be bumpy in the beginning, but it smooths out. And with that, I would like to invite you to have a look at the exercises and try to share them with your team, get them interested in doing them, and see what the benefits of them are by improving your pipelines and your process of releasing software in general. You can find some, at the end of the presentation, some resources to share and start reading if you're interested in them. And now Lisa and myself would like to have a conversation with you of how to go forward with continuous delivery and testing in DevOps environments as a whole team. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yay. Can people hear me? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Feel free to turn your cameras on if you feel comfortable with that, and jump in, ask questions, share your own experiences. It's a free-for-all.
This is your time. Just fire away or bring your experiences.
as Lisa said, or your grievances.
Oh, Mariana has a comment in the chat. Project started with quality in mind, implementing automated tests. Eventually they had to compromise in favor of the deadline. Yeah. Oh, reacting to all the UAT bugs. Well, I mean, it's good to, I mean, that's a good place to start automating, right? Is defect-driven development. If you can at least write tests for the defects, and then at least you have a safety net to make sure those same defects won't happen again. I think that's a good way to approach it, because yeah, I mean, we always have this balance of we've got to get a feature out for business reasons. We're going to accumulate some technical debt, and I think the important thing is just to keep that in mind and plan time in to address that later. We can cut corners, but it's important to go back and fill those in later. What do you think, Areti?
I do understand the problem with the giveaway, and especially when we start automating things, we really also not very sure what to automate. So, and automation of tests and scenarios always takes much longer than we expect. Always when you start the automation, start with something very small that you think at least this we can automate in a relatively timely fashion. And then at the user acceptance test, you know, take the hit, because you know what to expect. To say this far we have automated, this far we are kind of okay, we know what is happening, but there we expect the errors to happen. And for management to buy in, then you can also make this comparison that if we had the time to automate this would not have been found in the user acceptance test, maybe from one of the customers. So maybe to use it a bit as leverage.
Did any of you see Ken Pugh's talk earlier today?
No.
He went through test-driven development and behavior-driven development, acceptance test-driven development. And one way I've heard that people have sold the idea of automation to their management is using behavior-driven development or test-driven development, where we're writing scenarios that everybody can understand, so in a business language, and we're documenting how the system works. People like to have documentation, so by documenting this, how the behavior should be, and then turning those into executable tests, we make sure that that behavior remains the same, and we have to update the test if it changes. And so that's another way to sort of sell that to your business, living documentation.
We're actually discussing about that because the way we see it's perceived by the client is that you're selling development and testing and then the documentation, and they shouldn't be separated. It's like,
right,
it's all part of the same thing. They all guarantee the final product. So it's really hard to make people realize that they all should be together.
Yeah, Elizabeth Hendrickson said years ago, testing's not a phase. It's an integral part of software development along with coding, and it's hard to get that mindset. That's why we have to try to promote bringing the whole team into it and asking the team, oh, what kind of quality do we want to deliver? Well, most people want to deliver a quality product, right? Like, well, what does that mean to us? How can we achieve that in spite of all the obstacles in our way, and take that step-by-step approach? A couple of you mentioned that, you know, you have a separate DevOps team, and you may or may not know those people. And, you know, having a DevOps team, I mean, it's good to have those specialists, and hopefully they're helping to spread that knowledge around the company and get everybody into the DevOps mindset of we're building a product and we're also taking care of that product in production. We're trying to prevent customer pain. We're trying to respond to customer pain as well as build in the features. And I think it's important to keep growing that mindset, which is to me what DevOps really is.
Plus, it's to when it goes to continuous delivery and everything, to the first purpose of having continuous delivery, the first intention was to make deployments boring. So to need to know who are the people that are doing these deployments. Is it still boring for them, or is it still challenging? So they have this connection with the DevOps or operations people, which I bet they will not like, it's important because then you know the pain points. Can our changes get through seamlessly without any issues? To have this overview. Plus, you get to know their perspective of not only the problems, but also the good things. What changes made sense, which development cycle was easier to bring forward, and what were the reasons, and then maybe see if we can use those ones.
Yeah, be sure to celebrate this, even the small successes. We tend to forget that because we're on to the next thing we need to do, but it's good to stop and put on your party hat and like, wow, we finished recently. My team, I work on the monitoring and observability team, and we finished the last alerts that needed to be done in the monitoring and production. And well, let's have I think they call them alarms. Let's have an alarm party. And so we all got the silliest hats we could find in our houses and got back on Zoom, and we took a picture of ourselves with our silly hats. And you know, it does sound silly, but it was a fun thing, and it helped us recognize, wow, we achieved something. That's pretty cool.
Hey, you guys heard about the quality assistance model rather than quality assurance? Because this is something that we're trying to transition within my company. And I've heard about this term, like meaning several years ago, and trying to implement it. So just to allow the QA not only be at the end of the software development cycle, but to be involved from the very beginning. So with all the grooming and presentation of the product owners of the features that we're going to be working on to the entire Scrum team, we usually follow it up with example mapping exercise where all the stakeholders, like the questions that are asked are about what and why we're building. And it's all in a business specific language, not about how we're going to build, implement it, or how we're going to test it. Is really why are we doing it and what will be the impact to the customers of those changes that we're bringing in. And then as the second step, then we look at, okay, so then this is functionality with all the acceptance criteria that does get recorded with all those business examples demonstrating each and every aspect of it. We move to the second phase to discuss how can we make these changes, this feature self-maintained moving forward, meaning that any other changes to this part of code will be tested automatically, preferably at all the different levels, starting with the unit test integration and as a system like end-to-end test.
I have a question for you. Which part is harder? Is it the discussions or actually the implementation of the automation?
Which part's harder? Is that what you asked?
Yeah. Which one takes? Which one is harder to finish? Let's say.
Well, finish. There's the challenges were also to change the mindset, and for both for QA team as well as the developers and the product owners. The approach that we took, we chose just a few teams, Scrum teams, that were more open to the changes just by the culture of the people on those teams and kind of the culture within those teams themselves. And we worked with them and we got to the point that actually now developers on those teams asking to have those example mapping exercises before they start implementing, because nobody wants to spend time for nothing, only to learn that, well, I spent hours or days working on this feature only to find out that I misunderstood how it's going to be used. And the whole idea for QA is also to be involved, because you don't want to start writing the tests, again, not understanding what will be the end result. And the whole idea of this transition from quality assurance to quality assistance, there shouldn't be any surprise what we will be validating and how we will be validating this feature. So, because then all the defects that you find at the end, there is a cost to it. So you want to bring that knowledge before the implementation, and it becomes a guideline to the same developers as they implement. And the assistance is for us QAs to be available and working closely with the developers throughout the implementation. So like this, if there are any questions, you can do over the shoulder kind of discussion. Oh, we forgot about this, or show it to me in your environment, like what you've done, how you believe it's gonna work. And then two heads better than one. Oh, by the way, have you tried this? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, I'll leave you up to it. Let me go and talk to another dev. So that allows, well, should allow, and again, we are in transition, we're building it up, but it allows also to increase the time for the QAs to spend on exploratory testing, something that no automation can replace, and going through the steps of each and every individual test case also kind of limits the issues, the scenarios that you can actually touch on. So
yeah, I love that approach. I'm a big fan of example mapping and getting that shared understanding up front. I mean, that does, in my experience doing that with teams I've been on, it made a dramatic difference in our cycle time, really shortened our cycle time of when we started working on something to when we got it in production, and also hugely reduced our rejection rate. So when the product owner, we think we're all done, we hand it to the product owner and they say, that's not what I wanted. So yeah, I'm a real fan of those practices. And you know, and what I've seen my role more as like a quality consultant or sometimes a quality coach to just help the team learn the skills. And where I work now, we try, well, we don't have enough quality coaches to go around all the teams, but we do what we can to help the engineering teams or development teams be autonomous and own their quality and own their testing, and help them learn how to do exploratory testing and transfer those skills. And so, yeah, I really like the approach that you're taking and the idea of quality assistance. I think that term, did that come from Atlassian originally? Are they the ones that came up with that?
Yes, yeah. And there is a very nice talk on YouTube, like about 20 minutes, how they transitioned in some of their teams, and it took them 5 years to go from quality assurance to truly that they could say that, yes, we are quality assistants. But again, it did vary from one team to another. And it also helped them to increase the ratio between the devs and QAs. And I think in some teams, it got up to like 1:12 or 1:15. But it does come with challenges as well, because the mindset that we as QAs have, and if you're only assisting, you do want to spend time really hands-on, not to get your skills actually to become rusty.
And testers can also, or quality assistant people can also get involved on the operability side to say, what are we going to want to know about our code when it's in production? What kind of information are we going to need to try to notice problems or try to help analyze problems? So we can also get involved in talking about what do we want to log, or what events do we want to record, or want to try to do observability, and learning how to use the tools that let us look at those logs and events and patterns in production. So that's another whole area. And like you say, we need to be able to free our time up to move into those other areas, exploratory testing and testing in production, and looking at production data and learning from that. I think it's really an important part of it. So being able to get involved in both sides of that DevOps loop is really helpful.
Changing the mindset in what you said, as a tester myself, as a quality person, it was very hard to let go of that control, that, all my nice ideas of I got you with a bug, I had to share in the beginning. I was also reluctant to do that, which might seem silly now or not so optimal for the team, but this is how I started. I thought, this is my job, this is what I need to do to find issues, and I prefer to find them and say to somebody, yeah, here, I got you, rather than work with the team. So that really takes a shift in the mindset from both sides sometimes. Not only from the development side, but sometimes also from the tester mindset.
Very true. And the feedback also that I had, even from the developers, that they did notice that it was no longer us versus them. So it did bring everybody together, and it helped to build that culture of the quality is responsibility of everyone, and it starts with each and everyone individually, and it's the team that owns whatever they take upon themselves. It's the delivery of it with a good quality from the very beginning. That's their responsibility. So even just that feedback, which was kind of somewhat unexpected, but it was a nice byproduct of what we did. Indeed.
I see Luis had a question in the chat, but he's not in his little square anymore. So I want to wait till he comes back to talk about that. I don't know how long do we have? Do we know when this ends?
I don't know. Luis seems to be in the call, but I'm not sure.
What's that?
I seem to see him in the participants list.
Well, there he is. There he is. Okay, Luis, you asked about when you have separated out DevOps and your performance and security tests. So when you say out of scope for the team, out of scope for the DevOps team, or which team is that out of scope for?
So I'm a Scrum Master for a development team. So developers, Q&A testers, business analysts.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, we can control the unit testing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
At some degree, the developers can do some part of the integration tests, but when they do the push of the code, they lose track of the testing. So it's out of their hands. It's on the pipeline. So they cannot. Well, they may have the reports of Sonar sometimes, but they don't have the control to understand the pipeline on how they can improve the pipeline. So that's the main difficulty. So even the performance tests, they develop a new feature, they put the feature on the pipeline, but they can't even configure the performance testing of the feature. So
that's a very DevOps question, and I think it's why DevOps came to be. I think it's breaking down these silos where we are the performance team and we hold all of the knowledge regarding performance, and we are the security team and we are the holy people of security, and nobody else left and right needs to know. I think that this was the whole idea, that you can't have these silos anymore. Of course, you can't be a security expert maybe, but at least to understand what the result of a security test is and what its what I do a change on my code, right? And it goes through the pipeline and then the security tests fail. What does it mean? What does it mean? If you can't even understand is it really bad? Is it kind of bad? What happened? If you don't know what the purpose of the test is, then either you ignore it. I mean, as humans, what do? I don't understand the failure, so I ignore it. It's not my problem. I'm not the security expert.
Yeah.
And then you create this feedback that the security expert needs to find out what happened, who changed it, and what, and inform the person, oh, here your change was really bad or a bit bad. If there's not a bit of understanding what this test is doing and why and for whom, then the whole concept of the pipeline is just two gates. And you have the department that said security failed, roll back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a case where we need to ask for help, but I know that gets difficult because everybody's busy and they don't necessarily feel like they have bandwidth to come help you. But if there is an opportunity to ask somebody on this that's doing the performance test or the security test, or who's responsible for looking into those failures, to say, hey, could you spend 30 minutes with our team and explain your process or explain what you do, or how do you know when something fails, or what are your thresholds for flagging a failure? And because when you ask for help, you make a friend. And so after that, that's a good way to start building a relationship. If you can't get them to commit to that much, maybe you can identify one person on that team and say, hey, how about doing 15 minutes virtual coffee with me? Let's get to know each other and just start to, when I started my new job at the outset of the pandemic, which I was going to be remote anyway, but I just tried to have virtual coffees with people. Can you spend 15 minutes with you? Most people can find 15 minutes. And it's just a nice way to get to know people. And then you can kind of build on that relationship. It's not going to happen really fast, but it's a way to get started.
Okay. Okay, thanks for the insights.
Good luck.
And I don't know if you have, I don't know how big your organization is. I think I'm struggling to work in a big organization because In a smaller organization, you know, if we only had a total of 30 or 40 people, we could occasionally have all hands retrospectives and we could bring these sort of things up. But if you have 250 people,
it's big. One of the big 5 banks, so it's big.
yeah, that makes it really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at least you have identified the issue, which is it's a good start. You have identified that this is where we start having problems. This is where so identifying the issue is really not that easy, and it's the first thing. And then you try, okay, what can I do to address the issue, instead of saying nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, our engineering organization has had this sort of set up a process where, okay, identify, we're talking more about dependencies, like, oh, my team does this part of this monitoring and somebody else does the other part of this logging or whatever, but we all the parts need to be done. And up to now, it was just like, well, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
And now there's like, okay, what's your dependency? Okay, now go talk to that team. And providing time and a place, like, okay, today you have time to go talk to the other team and talk about your dependencies, and just kind of creating that physical space to do it. That has really helped. It's like giving people permission to spend time on that.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for the insights. Definitely a couple of ideas to grasp in. So
anybody else have ideas on that? No, I'm sure we have a lot of smart people here. Does anyone think that they'll actually try out either of the exercises that Areti and I demonstrated?
Can I give an idea to Luis?
Oh yes, Victor, please, yes.
Probably, I don't know if I understand well the point. Maybe inviting the other teams when you start a project, maybe in the kickoff of the project, invite the other teams that you know that you will need to work with, invite to the kickoff meeting of the project, so they know with extra time that they know that in the short time they will, you as in your team will need their help for your projects, so that when you pass your work to them, it's not something new for them, you know. So
that's a great idea.
So you will bring some commitment from them to your work. When you deliver your work to them, they will not be able to say, "Oh, I have right now, I don't have time for this," because it's not something new for them. Because in the kickoff, you invite them; they already know that you will need them. It's an idea, some commitment. Bring those teams for your project, and ask them for some commitment with you. You know.
Okay.
It's an idea.
I like that. I think it's a great idea. Any other ideas? So yeah, we're curious if anyone would like to try either of the exercises or both that Areti and I demonstrated with your team. You can do them with our materials or with your own. They're really pretty simple, but it's all about visualizing your pipeline and then asking these questions. And I love how Areti takes the different perspectives. If you're on a Scrum team, you have these people in different roles or different specialties, and they're all going to have different viewpoints. How do you bring those together?
And what's also interesting, what questions are relevant for each team, because you always have these questions that are very specific to your context. And it would be nice to have a big collection of things that I say, I never thought about this, but yeah, that would fit to us as well. Anyone willing to give it a try, or do you think that the teams will resist? Or is it a matter of time and priorities? If not,
I do want to try and use it, but first, I don't think we even know that we have a pipeline. I don't know if everybody has
everybody
visibility.
has a pipeline. Your code's going to go through some path to get to production. It might be all manual, right? But it's still a pipeline. And so I think that's a really important thing to realize and start to visualize and talk about. And even if you can try to do it for yourself and then go ask people, what happens after somebody commits a change? How often do we try to create a release candidate? What happens during that process?
Yeah, when I stopped to think about it, as developers, we have access to Jenkins and stuff, so we can see the pipeline. But I mean, usually testers are often asking, is the app already available?
So you don't have the visibility.
Yeah, I don't think they know that we have somewhere you can check other than App Center to see if the app's already available or when it's going to be available. We need to provide them with that information. So we need to first make sure everybody know that there's a pipeline where you can find it, and then discuss the steps. And one other thing that I was thinking about, the talk we had about the shift left test, was that the talk we had? In your exercise, you start with the commit, push to versioning system. How can we implement this left test before committing? Is it part of the pipeline somehow? Can it be?
I do feel like, I do feel like the whole thing is, well, we got that continuous loop, but I have heard people say how this is part of the pipeline. The things we do even before we commit it, because we want the developers at least to run static analysis, at least run unit tests and things before they check in. So it is all part of that process. And we have things like peer reviews or code reviews, or people maybe are pair programming or working in an ensemble. So yeah, you start to think about it, you realize it is kind of all part of a whole. But this is a thing that I've done when I've joined a new team or new company, is just to try to find some friendly person who might know and say, hey, can we spend 30 minutes and can you draw our pipeline for me? What do you think is the pipeline? That's a good place to start getting the understanding for yourself.
And maybe one more thing to that, and I think it's to your comment that I think pipeline somehow became synonymous to a CI server, and to think beyond what's our Jenkins or whatever CI server we have. There it starts getting, okay, as you said, this is the pull request part of the pipeline. Yes or no? If we just decouple it a bit from Jenkins and what we see, I think then it gets a bit more clear. Oh, there are other things to bring in, and this is what this exercise is. What are the other things? Because Jenkins, you can see and say, okay, this is the pipeline, but does it go to production, or we have change management, some kind of approval meeting? But pipeline became synonymous to CI server, and then we all get confused in that, where does it start, where does it end discussion. It's getting dark.
Other thoughts, other questions?
I have a small question to Mariana. If I understood well, she said that the tester asks for instance, for the application or the app, wherever. Does the tester follow the developers daily in a daily? Because if it's easier for me if I speak a little bit how things work in my organization. I'm working in an Agile squad, and we have the tester side by side has on a daily basis. We have daily small meetings when we where with each one of us, the developers says what we have done, what we are going to do, and the problems that we are having. And the tester is there with us. He knows the problems that we are having. He knows how we advance in our development. He knows everything all the time, every day. And one time in a week, we have also a meeting with our product owner, and we discuss what we are doing, the things that he asked us to do, and the things, and also discuss the things that he will ask us to do. We are all together, and we all discussed. The testers discussed how he's going to test. The developers discussed how we go, what you really want that we develop for you. The product owner says what he really wants, and with that we have a game that is the tester will have his work facilitated. The bugs will reduce. The product owner, when receive the final result, will be happier because it will be closer that you really asked, and we don't have entropies in the middle, you know. So my ask is returning to the beginning, and I ask Mariana, does the tester knows the point that the developers are in their work? You know, my English is not very good, but I hope that I could pass the idea. Mariana, is that the way you work in your organization? You are all together, the developers, the testers, the product owner?
So Mariana, that's a question for you.
Oh, sorry. Something happened with Zoom. It closed.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to repeat that again, please.
I heard about the meeting with the PO, you know, weekly basis and daily, but I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat just the question?
The last question.
Okay, my question is because it seems that I understood that you said the tester asked for the app. Where is it, and so on. It's kind of it seems that it was kind of lost. And my ask was if he works daily, works with you, with the developers in a daily basis. He is constantly informed of what the developers are doing, in what point they are in their work. You know, am I make myself clear in my question?
Yes, I mean, we do have those alignments.
Okay.
Yeah, so we know when we're going to deliver a story on that day, but what I meant is, do they know what happened after we open the pull request, for instance? What is going to run after the pull request is approved and merged, developed? What else is done after that, and how long it takes for it to be deployed and be available in the App Center? What happens is during the day after the daily, they would ask the developers to check on that if something happened with the build. So
okay.
I don't know if they know that they have access to that.
Yeah.
It's not because we often have this separation that if it's too technical, developers should do it. But just to open a link and see if everything is green, it's not technical, right? It's visual. So that's that's what I want to align with the team. If everybody knows how to do it, have access and such.
Yeah, that sounds really important to do.
Yeah. Okay. For me, the partner offline is that everybody must be involved in the process. Even the things that I know that it's not me that I'm going to do, but I must know that exists and somebody will do, even for that will be something that I'm going to use. It's not that I'm going to do, I'm going to use, and when if I use it, if I have problems, I must know, I should know who's the person who's going to unblock my problem, you know?
Yes, and that's something I think we don't know here, at least.
Okay.
There are a lot of challenges, but
yes,
you get your team
absolutely.
moving towards, modernizing, getting that pipeline, and hopefully, one of the biggest things for me as a tester was when we finally were able to move to the cloud and get our pipelines to automatically build and deploy to our test environments. Like, woo! Because before it was always like, okay, is anybody deployed to the test environment yet? When are we going to get that build? Or the build's not working, and so it saves so much time, and we have so many more important things to do with our time. So it's good to see those magical unicorn goals in our future that we can work towards.
Once again, I'm sorry. Once again, in my organization, we have a tool called Jira. I don't know if anybody knows that.
We have it,
but it's very helpful because when I finished my development, I push my story to another stage, to the test stage. So the tester knows already that his part is already ready to test. He doesn't have to constantly asking me, is it already? Is it already? When I can test? And so that tool is very, very good for that.
Visibility is good, yeah. Especially if it says where to go to test it.
Yeah. Of course, that's even though our job, the developer, is not finished. We help the tester to test, of course.
Of course.
And if he has some problems with the permissions and so on, we help him with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we went a little over time because we got a late start, so they let us go over time, which is awesome. And you guys had great questions, and also wonderful that you shared how you approach working together, testers, developers, other roles on the team working together. I love it, and the challenges that we have the visibility to things. That's really awesome.
I'm sorry. Just saying this. I'm a developer. I'm not a tester. And okay, it's some points for me, for myself, that I keep for myself. But I came to this session to be to be able to help even more my tester in my squad.
Awesome.
That's very nice.
Yeah, it's great. Great to hear.
That's why I came for this session.
We appreciate that.
And know a little more, of course, of what can be done in that stage, in the testing stage,
And that's very good because this is not a session for testers. I think testers are, aware of their pain points, but also bring forward the other way around, that the pain points maybe of the testers to people that might think, oh, is this really an issue? And it might be. So it's more of the other way around. Otherwise, only to do this for testers, it will be a bit like preaching to the choir. Or people in a quality role also, with the experience of Jana, to see that it is the tendency to expand and go beyond just verifying changes and going towards helping the whole team doing the testing and doing the quality and taking care of it.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna paste in the link to our exercise materials, and we sent the slides to the conference, but I don't know how they're gonna make those available, but we're happy to make those available to you. So did that go in? I tried to paste in a link, but I don't know if it worked. It doesn't seem to be pasting in. Why not? That's very strange. Can you paste in the link, Areti, to the exercises? I copied it from the, I see it, but it's not letting me actually post it.
I don't have it handy. No.
There it goes. Oh, now it finally did it. Okay. That's the exercises, and we can sure make the slides available. You know, feel free to just email me, Lisa at agiletester.ca or Lisa at lisacrispin.com, and I can send you the slides. And like I say, I think the conference is going to make them available, but we're happy to send them to you as well. And again, reach out with any questions, or Lisa Crispin on Twitter, Areti's Unremarkable QA on Twitter, even though she is remarkable.
Nobody needs to be remarkable.
And so, yeah, we'd love to hear more about what you're doing and share ideas, and hear if you try these exercises yourself and have any feedback for us. We'd love to know. But they're having the conference retrospective here in a minute, so I think we have to end this session. But thank you all so much. This part was, as I knew, this was the best part. So really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.